Today's interview is with Chris Ball from DeMoulin Uniforms. He now lives in Gainesville. Chris, where were you born and where did you start your music?
I was born in Orlando. I'm a Florida native, which is very rare nowadays, which I'm proud of though. I began in 7th grade at Howard Junior High School. Back then, I'm old enough that it was junior high school, 7 through 9, and high school, 10 through 12. And Dan McGrew was my band director as a 7th grader at Howard. And a lot of people, I'm sure, will remember Dan's name, and a legend in many different ways, but a very gruff and tough person, but he loved everybody. There was no doubt about it. I played trumpet, and which is interesting itself because I love music. Up till then, I think I played guitar for 2 or 3 years, guitar lessons, and my mother took me to see Al Hirt in concert in Orlando. And if many people don't know that name, they should Google it. But Al was a famous, shall we say, commercial, not professional. Well, he was a professional, but played more commercial songs than he did what we would think of as a soloist nowadays. And I loved it. I was a little fella, I guess 5th, 6th grade or something, and when we left it, I clearly still remember saying to my mother, I want to play that instrument. So that had a huge impact on me, and I stuck with it. Dan wanted me to play saxophone. He said since I had an overbite that I wouldn't be a successful trumpet player, I should play saxophone. So my mother brought me back the next day, tried me on saxophone, and I couldn't get over the vibration of the reed against my lower lip and didn't like it. I said, no, I want to play trumpet. So he kind of lifted his eyes up in the air and said, okay, begrudgingly. But I played trumpet, and anyway, and then I went to high school at Colonial High School in Orlando.
And where did you go to college? And how did you choose your college?
I went to University of South Florida in Tampa. My sister actually said something to me in the 11th grade. She said, you ought to look at South Florida. And immediately I thought, I don't want to go to Miami. I just don't have any desire for that. She said, no, it's in Tampa. And then it took me a while to get past that South Florida, and it was in Tampa thing, but I think that's not uncommon. But so it's kind of in the back of my mind. And it just so happened, and I put in applications at University of Florida and Florida State and had been accepted to both of them, but for some reason I just didn't pull the string on anything. And back then, this is the early 70s, you didn't have to commit as early as you do now. And it was easier to get into colleges than it is now, too. But Don Nieberg, who was the trombone professor at USF at the time, was my judge for my senior year solo at Solo and Ensemble. And I played some grade 6, I took private lessons, etc. And afterwards he talked to me and he says, where are you going to college? And I said, well, I haven't decided yet, but probably either Florida or Florida State. And he says, have you considered USF? And I said, well, my sister has said something about that. And he says, I think you should call us and come over next week and let some other people hear you play and let's talk a little bit. So basically the rest is history. I did that and went over and played poorly, I might admit, by my own standards. And but it was good enough that they said, we'd like for you to come to school here. And for whatever reason, my sister had put it in my mind, and Jim Croft had brought the wind ensemble to my high school a couple of months before that too, and I thought, okay, this seems pretty good, so let's go with this route.
Wow, it's a great story. Well, once you were out of college and you began teaching, where did you begin and where did you go from there?
I had 2 jobs. My first one was at EauGallie High School in Melbourne, and I was there for 8 years. And my second job was at Leon High School in Tallahassee, and I was there for 7 years.
And why did you leave teaching after that?
Well, and hopefully this can be something of benefit to younger teachers and directors, but I burned out. And this may go on a little bit, but when I was at EauGallie, I was very driven, perfectionist, high intensity. Nothing was ever good enough. It could be better. It had to be better. And it was about my fourth year, fifth year, I forget which, at EauGallie. And during halftime of a football game when we were playing Merritt Island High School, Mike LeClaire was the director at the time, and somebody I looked up to and admired. And he said, "You need to be careful." I said, "About what?" He says, "You're going to burn out at this rate." And I literally laughed. I laughed out loud. I thought, and I said to him, I said, "Mike, there's no way. I'm not going to burn out." He goes, "Okay." He says, "I'm just telling you." He says, "I see the signs, even as young as you are." He says, "And I just want you to be careful because you got some good things going on." I said, "Okay." And I didn't think another thing of it. And then we came about with some success that was fabulous at EauGallie. Some superiors at state, which the school had never accomplished before. And I started to get this feeling, and in my mind it was a feeling like, okay, I've really done a lot here, and I don't see how I can get a whole lot better. I need a new challenge. And about that time, Bobby Adams was moving on to Stetson from Leon. And Joe Krynas was in working my band at EauGallie one day. He says, "Bobby Adams is going to call you." I said, "About what?" He said, "About going to Leon." I said, "Oh, no, I don't need to do that. I'm happy here, and I may need to move on, but I'm not going to follow Bobby Adams." And so he says, "You just listen to him." I said, "Okay." Sure enough, within about a week, Bobby called me. And he said, "We need to talk." I said, "Yeah, Joe told me that you would be saying that." And he laughed like Bobby does, and he says, "No, just keep an open mind and let's talk." So I forget where we were, but we talked. And Bobby has a way of talking that you end up being like a 6-year-old kid on Christmas morning. I mean, he just gravitates you in. I mean, you become mesmerized. And I did. I can still remember to this day where we were and listening to him. And maybe I was drooling even. I mean, who knows? But it was like, okay, yeah. And I got more excited, more interested. And so finally, when he saw that he had the hook out there, he said, "So what do you think?" I thought, "Yeah, it sounds good. Let me talk to my wife because it'll involve a move of the family, but I'll get back to you." And my wife grew up military, so she moved around every 3 years anyway. Moving was no big deal to her. So anyway, we said yes. And what I said I'd never do, follow Bobby Adams at Leon, I actually did.
Well, why did you leave Leon?
Well, hopefully this ties the two ends together about where Mike first started to talk to me. It was about my 10th or 11th year teaching totals, which would have been my third or fourth year at Leon. And those same feelings that I had experienced originally at EauGallie when Mike talked to me started to come back. And I knew it wasn't, I needed a new challenge. I had plenty challenging me and keeping me interested and alive at Leon. And it hit me. I thought, oh my gosh, this is what Mike was talking about. I'm getting those same feelings in the pits of my stomach. This is that burnout thing. And then I kept battling back and forth in my mind. They can't be. I've only been teaching 10 years or so. That's just, look at the people in this profession that have gone so many years. I can't be burning out. But as much as I tried to deny it, it kept coming back year after year, a little bit stronger. And internally, I semi-panicked. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. This is all I've ever known is band, is music. I don't know what I'm going to do. So I fought it, and I thought, I just need more. I need a bigger challenge. So I fended it off for a couple years at Leon by doing that. Like, okay, we played this and this and this and this last year. All right, so I need to do something more challenging even than that this next year, which only intensified what was actually happening to me. And I had said to myself, when I saw it come on the second time, that second feeling when I admitted this is what Mike LeClaire was saying, I thought, I've seen burnout band directors. I'm not going to do that to myself, or I'm not going to do it to the people that I'm teaching, that I'm committed to, because I didn't see things that I liked. I didn't see, things that I thought were impacting people properly. And I thought, if it does happen, I'm going to get out. I'm not going to wait until they want me out, I'm not going to wait until they're hoping that I get out. It's when I see, no, it's it. I'm going to call an end to it. And it just, like I said, it kept building and intensifying. And again, this was because of my personality. Extreme intensity, perfectionist to the nth degree, never good enough. It can be better. It can be better. And when I put the keys in the door for my 15th year for band camp to open up, no one's around. And I literally said out loud to myself in a hushed voice, this is it. I will not do this next year. Not because I didn't love it, I still did, but just because it was becoming more of a job than a love. And I was remaining true to myself about, I'm not going to do this to people. I want to get out while people still, maybe wonder why. But I can see it's intensifying each year and it's not going to get better. So I need to make the first step.
Wow. Going back to when you were a band director, were there any particular challenges you had to overcome? Like a program that needed rebuilding or facilities that weren't up to snuff?
Well, I think anybody that's in any of these legacy projects has stories in this regard. I had two different experiences. At EauGallie, the program was down some. The concert aspect of the program needed to be emphasized quite strongly at that point. And there was a great love for marching and jazz, and concert was something we needed to do this time of year. Of course, going to the University of South Florida and having the influence of Jim Croft, there's only one way you knew band to be, and that was on the concert stage. So we worked at it, and we worked at it to train and change the culture there. And it took a while. It took till about the fourth year or so, and then you could see little by little each year they started coming around more and more. And that was neat, Mr. Ball. I like that piece. Are we going to get to play this year or that next year? And then that was a real level of satisfaction that you could change the culture and teach them that, hey, this is, when we're thinking music for high school, this is what it is. The marching band's great, and that's what people identify with, but this is where we're really going to learn what music is all about and the appreciation I want you to be instilled with. Then when I went to Leon, that wasn't an issue. Following Bobby once again, it was a matter of just keeping things going. And as Bobby said, it's at that time Oliver Hobbs was still alive, and one of the greatest parts of my career is that I was able to have a relationship with Oliver Hobbs.
Wow.
And he passed away while I was in the position at Leon. I think it was my fourth year, fifth, I can't recall exactly. But I remember Bobby, it was one of the more satisfying things that I ever had somebody say to me in the profession. He said, well done, you kept things going until the old man passed away. He says, because that would have really broken his heart if he's ever saw the program take a dive. He says, but he was always happy with what you did. And I thought, wow, that's that in itself is overwhelming.
Mm. Well, I would suppose the pivotal moment in your career then was when you decided to end the band directing career and have a second career. How did that all come about?
Well, when going back to the day when I said, that's it, I won't do this a year from now, I had no idea where to go. What am I going to do? I have no idea. Literally, it's just like being cast out into space and finding your way. And I can't remember the exact steps at this point, but I put in some calls to some people. And again, if I knew who it was, I'd tell you. To just kind of start the idea that, hey, I need a job. I'm not going to be teaching a year from now. What is out there? What's available? And through whatever avenues, a fundraising company found me. Now, when I was a young band director, my first job at EauGallie, it was very common. Henco fundraising.
Oh, Henco candles.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Was the big fundraising company, and they always brought in former band directors. And I didn't say I'm up for a fundraising job or that's what I want to do. That's the first thing that rang my phone. And I thought, okay, I can do this. Basically, it was more of a relief that, okay, I'm going to have a job. I can find a job somewhere, because I had 3 young kids and a wife, and I had to be making money somehow. And it wasn't necessarily, was I going to love it? It was just that, all right, I'm going to relieve people of me beating the band half to death because I'm never happy with what is going on when it's actually very good. And also I can have a profession. So I went into fundraising for 2 years before DeMoulin found me, which I'm very, very thankful for.
Well, it's interesting that your second career jobs all orbit around band still. You didn't seem to want to really leave the band room.
No. My adage I tell a lot of band directors nowadays is I get to be in band without being in band, which isn't a negative about band. It just means that I can't do what you're doing anymore, but I don't have to actually leave the band profession. So I'm on the outside looking in naturally, but I get to be around the medium and what I've always known all my life, which is a very comforting thing and something that's very, very positive. I mean, we all think highly of what band does for students and young people and as they go on through their lives, whatever profession they choose. And to still be able to be around that is great. It keeps you young. It keeps, the vitality flowing. I love that aspect of it.
And you've maintained your membership in Florida Bandmasters.
I have. Yes.
And maintained your collegial relationships with the directors.
Yes, and that's a very rewarding thing too. The people that taught during the time I did Generation are retired now or just retired or about to. And as a matter of fact, I totaled up in the car on the way here. This would have been my 35th year, so this has been my 5th year of drop. Of course, they would have dropped me long before now, according to what I've said previously. But, you build relationships in this business that last, and it sounds so corny, but it's true. They last a lifetime. And it's just amazing who you know, and then they know somebody also that you had no idea that you had that same connection. And it's such a fabulous fraternity, band directing. It really is, music education.
That's great. How about words of wisdom to future directors? You've talked a bit about burnout and how it felt creeping up on you. So talk a little more about that and other words of wisdom. You had very successful programs with wonderful bands. Talk a bit about that too.
Well, it's very humbling. Thank you for saying that. I was very blessed with a lot of students that put up with a lot from me, driving them to that degree. This is something that I impart to young directors that I see in my sales job right now. And I see a lot of them that are very driven and really into the band, and that's great. That's fabulous. We all should be committed to something that we're doing each day. And I just tell them a little bit about my story. I don't go into great detail. I just tell them, hey, I burned down. I said, and let me just impart this to you. So I would say this, and then people can take it however they want and do with it what they want. But I tell them, lock up that band room by 5:30. To what degree your band could get better, if they do, from 5 o'clock on till 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, isn't worth your personal life. Go do something completely unrelated to music. If you're into fitness and going to the gym, or playing tennis, or if you like to watch movies or read or something, whatever the case. In other words, everybody has some sort of hobby that they're interested in beyond music. So I implore them to say, okay, that was my band day, and now let's go do something else that I enjoy doing. Because I did not do that. I lived band and 24/7 like a lot of us. I remember when I had my breakthrough year at EauGallie, I was literally at the band room till 9 o'clock at night for 6 straight weeks. And that just fed the animal because that was the first year we made a superior at state. And I said to myself, okay, now I know what I have to do. And of course, then I got married shortly thereafter, and which was good because I couldn't do that. But, and my friends were band directors, which is nothing bad, but when you hung out together on the weekends or whatever, and then you talk about band. And that, for at least for me, that's what contributed to my burnout, is I was band, and I knew nothing other than that. I should have immersed myself in my kids more than I did. I did not neglect them, but if I had taken my own advice and looked ahead and been able to go back in time, I would have taken a lot more time to just go out bicycling with them, playing ball more, go and get an ice cream cone or something, just something to just turn off the band switch. And as I tell young directors, to bring this full circle, I said, and then when you come back to the band room Monday or the next day at 7, you're fresh, you're excited, you can't wait to get back into the band room again. But at least that's, for me, what I would have done differently. And there's people that can do that, that can go 24/7, and it won't affect them like it did me, and that's great. I admire that. But that's my advice to a lot of young directors.
And that's wonderful advice. You've talked about how driven you were, your personal character of being driven and being a perfectionist. But it did help you achieve high level in music and high level with your performance groups. So talk a little about that.
Well, it did. And the turning point in my career, Don Albert was my assistant principal at EauGallie when I got hired. And Don was a very successful band director at Melbourne High School, turned the Melbourne High School program around to what it was in the 70s, 80s, etc. And so it was great that I had a mentor and somebody that really understood the job and could guide me. And he never told me what to do. He just gave me advice, say, you need to make your own decision, but you may want to consider this. But one thing he kept telling me was, he says, you need to record your band. In other words, your rehearsal. And stupid me, I thought, no, I don't. I know what's going on. Well, my first year teaching, we made a split 1. And that's great, because the previous year they made straight 3s at district, what we knew was contest back then, but is now MPA. And so, of course, the ego-driven band director, me at the time, said, all right, I got this. I know what I'm doing. Well, then we made a 2 in my second year. We made a 2 my third year. And I said to myself, a turning point in my career was in my 4th year. I said, that's it. If we don't make a 1 at district this year, concert stage, I'm getting out because I don't know what I'm doing. And I even started taking business classes at Brevard Community College at night at the time, because I thought, I don't want to start from scratch. I need to have something going. So if this doesn't work out, I already am moving on to something. And but I was scared to death, because I love band and I wanted to be a band director and I wanted to be a successful band director. So a light came on above my head, said, wow, I'll even record my band, like Don said. So I recorded my band, and to this day I can still hear the first sound I heard when the next day on my planning period I hit play an hour before the band rehearsal. And I heard it, I went, oh my gosh, no wonder you've been making 2s. You're well lucky they don't give you a 3. I thought, you'd almost think it wasn't even my band. And I thought, idiot. Somebody's been telling you all along what to do, and you've been thinking you've got it. Well, anyway, I rolled up my sleeves and went to work. And when I heard all of what I was not hearing, because obviously I didn't have good, what I call podium ears. You focus on 1 or 2 things and you can't hear everything else. Mm-hmm. So I rolled up my sleeves and went to work and started marking up my scores and making notes on scrap paper about what needed to be rehearsed and worked on. And needless to say, I recorded my rehearsals from that point on. And the rest kind of just took off from there, because then the next day you could hear the improvement. And then a week later you could hear improvement, and so on and so forth. So we made a 1 at district that year and saved me from the business world, or saved the business world from me. And then that made a 2 at state that year. So I thought, okay, I understand now. So things moved forward from that point.
Well, what did you have to instill in your students in order to have them achieve that high level?
Well, I was blessed with a lot of fabulous young people who were willing to let me drive them. And to this degree, I don't, or to this day, I don't, I wonder how they put up with me, to be honest with you. Because again, going back to that perfectionist thing, once I started hearing those tapes, the rehearsals, wasn't good enough. This can be better. This can be better. This phrase can be better. This chord can be better in tune. And and so I drove them. I said, no, that's good. We're getting there. It's not good enough yet. And you could almost see the looks on their face at first, like, okay, well, we think it is, but and they went with it. And of course, success feeds success. And that fourth year, we got a 2 at state at EauGallie. And then the next year, we pulled a 1 at state. It had never been done before. And after that, I had them in the palm of my hands, which isn't to be boasting, but they wanted that success. They loved it. And so they were willing to be driven to the degree that I wanted to drive them. And it was almost, they were like sponges. Like, tell me more. What do we need to do now? What's next? And it was great because it was a great experience for me. It was for them. At least I hope so to this day. Anyway.
Well, when you were teaching, what did you do to keep your edge, to keep wanting more perfection or a better chord the next day?
Wow. Of course, hearing other bands around the state, the legendary, back then, John Carmichael was at Lakeland High School. That's the one I always looked up to. And you'd hear them, you go, wow, that is sensational. So you'd want to drive yourself. Okay, we may not be able to get there, but we can be better. And then it became also a thing with me about performing more difficult literature than the previous year. Like, okay, we made a 1 at state performing this and this. We can take that up to a 6. We did 2 5s last year. I can do 1 6 and a 5 this year. So I had to keep challenging myself also, which then started to lead into that burnout thing, because I could never take a step back. I had to at least do something as challenging as the previous year, if not more challenging. So you start to get an idea of where I was at.
Mm-hmm. Well, now that you're in your second career, how do you remain connected with music?
Well, I love music. I'm in my car a lot, obviously driving around the state. So I have Sirius XM radio, which is a fabulous thing. So I listen to the orchestral channel. Every once in a while I'll pull out some old CDs of the Navy band, the Marine band that I have, or even cassette tapes. If anybody still knows what those are.
Any 8-tracks?
No. I had those in high school, but no. And listen to some of my my old tapes, and I can appreciate them more now. And but I attend concerts. I live in Gainesville, so I go to concerts at the University of Florida. I try to attend state when it works into my travel schedule. Especially, it works out great that I'm overnight somewhere, or I try to work it out to where I'm overnight in the area where state is going on. So I say, okay, after this appointment, I can get over here and catch a few bands. And so just continuing to be around music. It's a great thing because I get to listen to it now from an enjoyment standpoint, more so than the analytical when I was in my burnout stage and teaching.
Yeah, it's great that you've gone back to enjoying it.
Yes, it is. Very much so.
Well, we're almost at the half-hour point, but we have time for one story that would demonstrate your satisfaction about choosing the life you've chosen.
I don't have one story, but it's kind of just wrapped up into an idea.
Okay.
And my greatest satisfaction, I believe, out of teaching the years I did, was the impact I was able to have on students' lives, no matter what profession they took. One of my favorite questions to ask the freshmen every year was, what is my job? And of course, they're not going to come up with the answer I want. Mm-hmm. And after they go through the various attempts, I said, no, my job is to take you beyond where you think you can go and then you achieve it, and then you see that you can always do more, or that you can do more than you think is possible. So I even though, as I indicated, it was it may have been a negative, and I'm sure it was for some students who are forever scarred, but instilling in them the desire and the discipline to not just accept status quo, to adopt a level of achievement for them that they can be proud of. Now, that's different for some people as opposed to others. Others have to go to the moon, others have to just go to the sky. And that's fine, but for none of them to just think, okay, I only need to do this. But to think, okay, because of my band years and learning the idea of striving for perfection, striving for the best I can be, what am I truly capable of? And to this day, I still get Facebook posts or whatever from former students that talk about the things that they learned that they've used in their lives, of which not all of them are musicians or band directors, but whatever profession they've used. And that's very rewarding. I absolutely just love that I was able to have that impact on them.
That's wonderful. It's a sign of a great life. Well, we've reached the end of our half hour, so it's time to say bye-bye.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.